go. Stop. Stop. Go. Okay, get on the armoured vehicles.
Hello, I'm Frederica Whitfield in the CNN newsroom in Atlanta. Here's what's happening at this hour. Baghdad shook again from more Allied bombing overnight. Long bursts of heavy machine gun fire and strong explosions rocked the city as U.S. forces tightened their grip on Baghdad. Loud explosions were heard downtown near the information ministry and a hotel where many journalists are staying. The wounded have been flooding Baghdad's hospitals during the firefight. One surgeon says his staff has treated more than 100 people. A true count of civilian injuries isn't known just yet, but International Red Cross officials say it could stand at several hundred. President Bush's national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice, is in Moscow for talks with top Russian leaders. Differences over Iraq have strained relations between Moscow and Washington, but a U.S. Embassy spokesman says the Bush administration is committed to a long-term strategic partnership with Russia. Friends and colleagues tonight are remembering NBC News correspondent David Bloom as a dedicated journalist and, quote, one of the very best. Bloom, who left an anchor's chair at NBC to cover the war as a reporter, died of a pulmonary embolism earlier today. He was embedded with the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division. Bloom was 39. He leaves behind a wife and 3 daughters. Enough can't be said about a former co-worker of mine at Weekend Today, as well as on many reporting assignments. He truly was a reporter's reporter. Health officials in Hong Kong tell us 2 more people died there today of severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS. Hospitals are treating more than 40 new potential SARS cases, pushing the total in Hong Kong alone well above 800. Dozens have died around the world. Those are the headlines at this hour. Now more war coverage live from the front lines.
Live from the front lines, the timeline behind today's headlines. Tonight, how the day unfolded on the war front.
One soldier said, quote, nothing goes into that city or out of that city if they want to live.
Baghdad, a city under siege. Tonight, all the roads out of the Iraqi capital lead to U.S. troops. A bloody friendly fire incident. In one reporter's words, a scene from hell. What exactly happened in northern Iraq? And U.S. Marines making house calls. Tonight, we'll show you what it takes to root out pockets of resistance. Plus, the new management makes some changes. The airport, formerly known as Saddam International, puts out the welcome mat for the Stars and Stripes. Live from the front lines, day 19.
Good evening. You're looking at a live picture of Baghdad where it is just after 4 a.m. At this hour, there is a curfew in effect imposed by the Iraqi government. And if any residents were to leave, they would likely run into U.S. troops who are said to be in control of all of the roads in and out of the city. Again, thanks for joining us. I'm Paula Zahn in New York. Over the next half hour, we're going to take a look at the timeline that brought us to this point. Wolf.
Thanks, Paula. I am Wolf Blitzer in Kuwait City. Also this hour, our question of the day, were the war critics wrong? But first, let's start our look back at this day 19 of the war in Iraq. Overnight in Baghdad, Iraqi authorities established a curfew. No civilians will be allowed to travel between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Up until now, there had been a fair amount of people moving out of Baghdad, even at night. Thousands of Iraqis fled the Iraqi capital yesterday, looking for relative safety behind U.S. military lines or heading north away from the coalition advance. Paula?
Thanks, Wolf. 8 a.m. Eastern Time in northern Iraq. Let's fast forward a few hours when 18 people are killed, dozens more are injured, and one of the bloodiest incidents of coalition-friendly fire since the war began. ITN's Julian Mannion reports.
Kurdish troops have been making their advance an incident of friendly fire. A U.S. warplane bombed Allied special operations and Kurdish.
He was not afraid to reveal after 9/11.
Well, Tom, this is a haunting, even demoralizing vantage point.
Only 39, he was a reporter's reporter, endlessly curious, precise, so tenacious he'd make a bulldog seem timid. From a hotbed on the Gaza Strip,
This is where Hamas's strength is greatest.
where the former high school debate champ took on Yasser Arafat.
It accuses you of, and I'm quoting here, being directly involved in the planning and execution of terrorist attacks.
From the squalor of Haiti to sniper shootings around Washington, where his doggedness impressed even his competitors.
Are you saying it might be this vehicle or it might be that vehicle?
David Bloom wouldn't just cover major events, he'd own them.
You could try to chain him to his anchor desk and he'd break away. He wanted to be there.
Wanting to spend more time with the wife and 3 daughters he adored, in 2000 he began co-hosting Weekend Today, endearing himself with his boyish charm.
Let's make some cotton candy, because I know my kids are watching, and if we don't use this big machine, they'll be really disappointed.
The same puckish good humor he carried into the Iraqi desert.
Oh, what are you doing?
David Bloom, a rich life and career that was gung-ho, glorious, and all too short.
Every major story is defined by a handful of lasting images. In Operation Iraqi Freedom, one of them will surely be a weathered David Bloom, reporting live from atop that specially modified M88 tank recovery vehicle. We had a name for it at NBC. We called it the Bloom-mobile. David was such a fixture on the airwaves, and his round-the-clock reporting so captivating, one columnist called him Iraq's unofficial travel guide. Here's a look at the march of the 3rd Infantry Division toward Baghdad through the eyes of David Bloom, beginning over 2 weeks ago.
As a journalist, obviously we're trying to maintain our objectivity and report factually what we see and hear here, and not to become one with the force, if you will, because we still have to maintain that appropriate journalistic distance.
They're calling it Route Hurricane through the southern Iraqi desert because obviously this is a very fast-moving force by traditional military standards, but it's still a long train, if you will, a long convoy, thousands of vehicles. We're not saying where we are, we're not saying how far we've traveled, because that information is obviously secure and not something that these commanders want to give out. What you're looking at right now is some of these vehicles are breaking down as they roll along these bouncy roads, and so they stop and they're having to repair them. The last few hours, we've been in what was a battle zone in the first Gulf War, what these soldiers called Gulf 1 as compared to Gulf 2. So we saw a lot of burnt out Iraqi tanks, a lot of unexploded American ordnance. We got rockets coming in on us. We're under attack right now. Tom, we're under attack right now. Then in the distance we can see the MLRS rockets, the multiple launch rocket systems that the Americans use, the counter battery, if you will, from the Paladins, the heavy howitzers, which they use with a range of up to 30 or 35 miles to strike against Iraqi artillery positions or other Iraqi forces. Captain Josh Wright says guerrilla tactics and supply problems won't stop the Third ID.
This mission will get done. May not be as fast as everybody thinks or everybody wants, but this mission will get done. No doubt about it.
And Captain Wright and others point out the ground war is only about 200 hours old. Too soon, they argue, to start second-guessing. Essentially what's happened is that there are other forces ahead of us, part of the 3rd Infantry Division, which is this large mechanized division, 20,000 soldiers, 250 tanks. And what they're doing is they're cutting off routes of access that the Iraqis might have to reinforce these Republican Guard positions to the south of Baghdad. Within a matter of hours, This large mechanized force is set to launch the main attack against those Republican Guard forces.
Now Baghdad is within striking distance, just a few short miles away, as U.S. troops make their final push forward. Burned armor on the side of the road, a charred motorcycle used to attack American forces. All evidence of a fierce U.S. bombing campaign against Iraq's irregular army and Republican Guard unit. As the Third ID push forward today on the road to Baghdad, we've seen a number of interesting things.
We passed Iraqi POWs encampments where small numbers of Iraqis have been basically put behind concertina wire by the Americans. The job of the force we're with is to guard a bridge, a critical crossing over the Euphrates River. So critical that the Iraqis keep trying to take back the bridge with disastrous results. The charred remains of Iraqi tanks litter the main roadway. Destroyed Iraqi armored personnel carriers smolder in tall grass near the riverbanks. Pickup trucks filled with Iraqi soldiers carried them only to their graves. In two firefights today, less than 15 miles from the outskirts of Baghdad, Captain Josh Wright's Gator Company destroyed close to a dozen Iraqi tanks. But he says, surprisingly, those technicals may be Iraq's most effective weapon.
The technique is for them to load up personnel in the back with light anti-tank weapons. And
like rocket-propelled grenades.
Right, like RPGs. They bring them in close, dump them off, and these guys scatter into the brush. And then it's a game of finding them.
Today in that thick brush, Americans found instead this large stockpile of weapons. And significantly, gas masks and atropine from Turkey.
We found these vials, still trying to find out exactly what they are.
Evidence the Americans say the Iraqis may still be planning a chemical weapons strike. David Bloom, NBC News, southwest of Baghdad.
It was David's tireless work ethic and amazing enthusiasm for the story that produced over 100 reports from Iraq and brought the life of the American soldier into all our households these past few weeks. What many don't realize is that David's efforts began long before he landed in the Middle East. On a special edition of Bloom's Own Weekend Today, Katie Couric and Tim Russert discussed how David's famous enthusiasm led to historic breakthroughs in the craft of broadcast journalism.
Tim, you know David very, very well when he was the White House correspondent for NBC. Tell me your impressions of working with him so closely.
This is David. The war comes home in harsh reality, Katie. You couldn't keep him away from a story. If there was a hurricane, a flood, a coup in Haiti, wherever there was something breaking, he wanted to be there. He begged to be a reporter, to go and be embedded with the military. He was the one who helped design the Bluemobile. He would call me on the phone late at night, early in the morning, saying, I need one more part. We need to get this through. We need approval to put it together.
And he not only contacted the company, arranged the technology, he also made sure they wouldn't create any more of the technology so no one else would have a competitive edge. I mean, reporters don't do that. They don't get involved very often in the technical aspects of this job, but it was really his doing that he was able to broadcast these incredible images from Iraq.
The Bluemobile was one of a kind, and so was David. In high school, he was a championship debater. He had a huge intellectual power and curiosity. Also a great hockey player. I used to go to take him to hockey games here in Washington. He wanted to be on the front row on the ice. And you were sore after watching the game with him because he was animated and wanted to be out there and aggressively watching and reacting. My nickname for him was the Bloomster. And every time I'd see him, I'd say, hey, Bloomster. And he'd say, that's my second favorite nickname. My favorite's Dad. He was devoted to those little girls, the twins who turned 9 last week.
Christine and
Nicole and little Ava, who's 3, and Melanie, his wife. And I know when you were in Saudi Arabia, he called you.
Yeah, he was so cute because he would talk about, he knew so much. I was so impressed by his military knowledge and by his knowledge of Saddam Hussein. He had read multiple books and was regaling me with stories about Saddam. But then he would say, look at my wife and kids. And of course they were beautiful. They're a beautiful family, and he was so proud when he showed me that picture, and he said, can you buy some little dresses, because he knew I'd bought Ellie and Carrie some dresses, and he said, could you buy some for my girls and for Melanie, because he was so busy. And I said, of course I will. But he just was so in love with his family. Deeply. In fact, last night, before he had this pulmonary embolism, he was on the phone asking for the scores of the Final Four basketball game, calling his wife. It all just happened so sudden. And he will be 40 May 22nd, next month. But that's David. You couldn't keep him away from this story. Well, how torn was he, though, Tim? Because I know a lot of our viewers were worried about him. They knew that he had these little girls and that he was married. And, of course, you know, it's so upsetting when you hear about a father being taken from his family. Michael Kelly from Atlantic Monthly has 2 little boys, 6 and 3, and he also died the other day in Iraq. Did David talk with you about that, about feeling torn, wanting to do a good job, but not wanting to risk his life in a palpable way? Oh, sure. But he said, I'm going to be fine. You know, I am ready for this. And you could tell with his enthusiasm, the way he crossed that desert and those memorable pictures forever. He was reporting that story for NBC News, for America, but in his heart were the ladies of his life, Melanie and his 3 daughters. And he constantly wrestled with that, but that's what any good reporter does. It's a hard decision to make, but once again, it comes roaring home, Katie, that war is tough and real, and we have lost one of our very best.
Up next, reaction from around the country to David's extraordinary reports on the extraordinary men and women fighting the war in Iraq. And memorable moments like the one you're about to see. David and the Army's 3rd Infantry Division getting stuck in a blinding sandstorm. We'll be right back.
Disciplined investing. It's not about following the crowd. At T. Rowe Price, our independent research means we're not deceived by a historic motion picture. Over 70%.
But it's a big deal psychologically to the coalition force to say, we have this airfield, it's in their hands, our hands, and we can bring an airplane into it. So that's what the coalition is trying to say. So it has a psychological impact as well as can they get it in or not. Now, they brought it in at night using a C-130, a blackout landing, using night vision goggles. The Air Force has some great pilots trained at this capability at night to bring in these type of airplanes. It was the appropriate airplane for this airfield at this time.
All right, let's move in using our satellite imagery on our earthviewer.com and just show you this airport and its significance. You've seen a lot of it lately. But this airport, we need to point out, is not the only significant airport in Baghdad. Here's runway 33 right there. That means off to the northeast. And it is a 10,000-foot runway, plenty of capacity there. This could easily become a military base if the U.S. decided it wanted to do it. But I want to call your attention to a couple of things that are interesting about this civilian airport. It's laced with anti-aircraft artillery batteries. General Grange, this one that we're about to go to is right in the middle of the airport. We can presume it's neutralized, but there still is a threat all around this airport, isn't there?
That's right, Miles. The airfield is in coalition hands, but it doesn't mean it's totally secure. It's very difficult to secure a runway this close to enemy lines, which are very fluid, to protect the approach end and the takeoff end of the runway, because that requires going out several miles in either direction, as well as area coverage from, for instance, mortar fire or artillery fire that may impact on a runway at taxiing aircraft. So protection against shoulder-fired missiles, easy to hide, or mortars that you can fire from a garden behind a house, or an anti-aircraft weapon system that's hidden in a, let's say, a garage, in a built-up area around it. It's very hard to find it. Very similar to Khe Sanh in Vietnam, finding stuff in the jungle is very comparable to hiding something in a built-up area.
And quickly, while you were talking, I moved over to this other airfield, Rashid Air Base, a military base. Securing it, I assume, will be a priority for the Marines in the future.
I believe so. You know, southeast of the city, another key piece of terrain to use to build up forces to launch new attacks, whether they be with attack. Reporting from the
field was stellar. Troops in the field had grown to like him and respect him, and he will be missed. When I first got the job with General Franks, David was one of the first reporters that called, and boy, he was aggressive, but what a great reporter.
You bet he was aggressive, a great reporter, and more importantly, just a great guy. Tonight, like so many families across America mourning those who made the ultimate sacrifice in Iraq, we are remembering our friend David Bloom, whose life was tragically cut short earlier today. Among other things, David's groundbreaking reporting during the war showed us that Iraqi forces were not the only enemy of coalition troops. Quite often, the weather was a formidable foe, and the result was some amazing images.
Sandstorms are picking up power tonight, with winds more than 50 miles an hour expected tomorrow. The weather could further slow down the push into Baghdad.
It's been a day of frustration for these soldiers. Sand has been whipping across the Iraqi desert all day, gusts up to 50 miles an hour. Here, a maintenance crew tries to repair the engine of a broken Bradley fighting vehicle, trying to keep the American war effort on track.
You doing okay, Bob?
Yeah, fine, buddy. I'm just concerned about the gear.
You can see these guys behind me. I mean, this sandstorm has just been horrible today, and they've been trying to fix this engine for this Bradley fighting vehicle in the midst of this sandstorm when the sand sticks to the oil in the engine, and they're trying to get it fixed. They're trying to get it back inside the Bradley.
I've never seen this before.
Nothing like this in Kansas, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you over there, you guys, just tell me a little bit more about this. I mean, this weather. As far as trying to work in this weather. First of all, what's your name?
I'm Staff Sergeant Johnston. I'm the BC for the track.
And what's your first name?
Charles.
Charles Johnston?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Stationed in Fort Stewart.
So tell me about this weather and trying to work in this weather.
If you can see me squinting. I'm sure you're all having the same problem. The dust gets in everything. It's hard to work just from the fact that you can't see. And then when it gets dark, we're really in trouble because we don't want to have white lights.
You see over there, which is what 8 or 9 guys squeeze inside of. And it sounds like they're having some success because they're cheering right now.
The weather just didn't let up. Around 4 o'clock this afternoon, the sky suddenly turned a rusty red. And then an hour and a half before sunset, black as night.
In addition, the supply lines are very difficult. They're very stretched thin because obviously we're talking about a supply line, the convoys that have to come up from Kuwait all the way up here now, hundreds of miles to supply us with fuel and food and ammunition and water. And while they're not running critically low on those supplies, they are running low.
Then late in the day, thunderstorms, rain and lightning briefly clearing the skies.
This sandstorm is far worse right now than it's been throughout most of this day. The wind is easily blowing 40, 50 gusts of maybe 60 miles an hour now. And clearly it's just creating havoc on these forces here. It's really whipping hard here. And basically it's got these forces tied down, not because the tanks and the Bradleys can't fight, but just for so many other logistical reasons. We've continued throughout the morning to show you these guys behind us, and we're on night scope now, so you can see them a little bit better working on this this engine, because obviously this wind creates havoc with the tanks and the Bradleys, which are the main fighting force here with the 3rd Infantry Division. But clearly there are 2 big obstacles. Number one, they rely on close air supports in this fight that looms ahead with these heavily armed Republican Guard divisions, and they just can't get that, especially with the Apache attack helicopters. They just can't fly in this kind of weather. It's clearly very dangerous. I just think that you can't really quantify the dangers. You know that you'd rather in some ways be sitting back at home with your wife and kids, but that's not the mission that we've got right now, and so we accept that risk in order to bring this story back home to the American people, which I, for one, and I know everybody at NBC News believes is a risk worth taking, because this is something that it's worthwhile for the people back home to see.
Long before David Bloom went to Iraq to cover Operation Iraqi Freedom, he took a frontline role on some of the biggest stories of our generation, starting in Miami as a reporter for our station WTVJ to his years covering the controversial Clinton White House for NBC News. Here now a brief look back at the incredible career of our colleague and friend, David Bloom.
More than 2,000 Cubans made it to America last year, most on makeshift rafts, but not all. Last June, 5 men stole this crop duster and landed at Miami's international airports. The only difference between fleeing Cuba in a raft or in a helicopter is that Castro's government wants this helicopter back. It will likely be returned to Cuba sometime next week. There are different means, but the end is always the same: finding freedom in America. David Bloom, NBC News, Miami.
David, good morning. What's the situation there, and how many people are still homeless 6 months later?
5,000 people still homeless in South Dade, Katie. Good morning. You know, the situation is not as bleak as it was 6 months ago, but this cruel wind, as we called it then, has left a cruel legacy. We're actually at Harris Field, which was the tent city 6 months ago. Now, as you can hear and see, it's a daycare center. A lot of the homeless people still live around here. The federal trailers have been set up just south of us, and parents come here because 23 of the 27 daycare centers were destroyed by the storm. The difference between then and now is dramatic, at least from the air. It's only when you get back down to earth that you realize re-roofing homes is far different than rebuilding lives.
People's moved away. The people that you knew, they're gone.
You ever dream about the hurricane?
Yes.
Nightmares? Tell me about it.
I think I dreamed about what killed us.
The negotiators say the Branch Davidians now want to be called Koreshians. By whatever name, there are still more than 100 of them holed up inside what the locals are calling Ranch Apocalypse.
Cato, you know I was in the house.
But Kalin told jurors he didn't know where Simpson was for that crucial hour. But Kalin also said he never saw a cut on Simpson's hand, contradicting prosecutors' claims that O.J. was bleeding after the murders. The cross-examination of Cato Kalin begins later today. David Bloom, NBC News, Los Angeles. Bombing suspect Ted Kaczynski. He has been as mysterious to the people here in Lincoln as the Unabomber has been to the federal agents trying to capture him. David Bloom, NBC News, Lincoln, Montana. Bob Dole and George Bush met this afternoon, a show of party unity despite renewed signs of division. Already today, Bob Dole was bragging about new public opinion polls that show this presidential race tightening. Dole hoping for his convention bounce, even as this convention begins. David Bloom, NBC News, San Diego.
NBC's David Bloom first broke the story last night and joins us from the White House. David, exactly what are they trying to hide?
Well, Sarah, NBC News has learned that when Iraq on Monday abruptly halted the work of that UN weapons inspection team, the inspectors were investigating the possibility that Iraq used prisoners as human guinea pigs to test nerve gas and germ warfare agents. The significance of this deal, the president said, was that it's the first time that the Russians have agreed that there must be a military presence in order to guarantee the safe return of Kosovar refugees to Kosovo if and when the fighting stops. There's a new twist this morning in the custody battle over 6-year-old Ilian Gonzalez. His relatives here in the United States are now asking that the young Cuban boy be granted political asylum, meaning he would not be reunited with his father back in Cuba. It's the 7th day of this recovery operation. At what point do you try to say to folks, it's maybe no longer realistic to have any hope?
It is much less realistic now.
I mean, the fact of the matter is the survival rate in a situation like this is decreasing very, very rapidly.
That's true, but we don't look at that. We're going on the fact if we find one person, we've done a good job.
Right now, we're walking into 5 World Trade Center. People have talked about there being caverns, pockets, voids where people might still be alive. And what you're saying is that's real. That's not just false hope.
Well, there are caverns down here. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we run into them, but most of the people in these areas here have gotten out.
Hey, I'm Soledad O'Brien, along with the very groovy David Bloom.
Thank you very much. I cannot believe that they got me in this.
You are a happening man.
Are you increasing the speed on this thing right now? Whoa!
We're going to separate some eggs. You're going to help me with that. Can you catch
something I can do? Ah, that's good. They're empty.
No, you cannot do that.
That's good. Didn't know that, did I?
Do I owe you money?
I think all these guys there we go.
Oh, there we go. Yes. Bring it in.
Never got paid for the last time we made a wager on this show. We're back after this. Stay with us. Take care. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next weekend. Bye-bye.
Early in his career as David Bloom broke stories and racked up awards at WTVJ in Miami, it was evident this tenacious young journalist had that special something that would take him to the top of his profession. Don Brown was the first boss and mentor of a young investigative reporter destined for greatness.
David's dream was to become a network correspondent, and David had an aura about him and a quality about him that just stood out in the crowd. He's beloved here. He's beloved in the South Florida community. And basically, David and I created a mentoring relationship and coaching relationship, and we wanted to get him to the network. He wanted to do exactly what he was doing. But what was interesting about David, we talked about his bulldog tenacity, his drive to excellence. But what was great about David is David brought a joy to what he did that infected everybody around him. And the thing that was so impressive in his work is his empathy for people. When David, being a great storyteller, in every story, in every situation, whether it was working with his crew or working with the people he was telling the story about, David had a compassion and an empathy that is very unusual. It wasn't about David Bloom. It was about the people and the story he was telling about. He's a passionate man, and he's clearly a benchmark.
And coming up, from close colleagues to presidents, David Bloom made a lasting impression. Some personal stories. Plus more of David's remarkable reports in the front lines and what we know around here as the Bloom-mobile when our tribute to NBC's David Bloom continues.
On the main roads.
We do control the highways in and out of the city, and do have the capability to interdict, to stop, to attack any Iraqi military forces that might try to either escape or to engage our forces.
Pentagon sources say the U.S. will conduct more armored raids in which U.S. tanks and Bradleys roar through the city streets. The idea is twofold: a show of force and a chance to lure Iraqi troops into an overmatched duel. The Pentagon doesn't know, but estimates its conquest of Baghdad may have killed between 2,000 and 3,000 Iraqi soldiers, and it believes thousands of others have abandoned their weapons and melted into the city. Sources also say the U.S. may launch other forays into Baghdad if there's a chance to capture or kill Saddam Hussein or any of his inner circle.
We want to attack a specific regime location where a meeting is ongoing and kill everyone that's in the meeting. We might do that in some cases. That could happen in Baghdad.
The U.S. strategy remains to try to isolate the regime in Baghdad and use surgical pinpoint strikes to try to neutralize it. The U.S. did take some more territory today, including a presidential palace complex that the U.S. believes was being used as a headquarters by the Special Republican Guard. Paula?
Thanks so much. Jamie McIntyre reporting for us from the Pentagon tonight.
As a person, I can tell you that these soldiers have been amazing to us. They have done anything and everything that we could ask of them, and we in turn are trying to return the favor by doing anything and everything that they can ask of us. But as far as the relationship is concerned, we are about as one with this force as you could possibly be.
Operation Iraqi Freedom introduced us to the term embedded reporter. David's assignment was the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division, a fighting force making a lightning dash toward Baghdad. For David, it was the assignment of a lifetime. Here now some more personal moments from the field, both on and off the air.
Hey, Trinity, you want to talk to your family back home in Brooklyn? You look weird, Craig, because there's some light that's reflecting on your glasses, you know? So, oh, it's from your camera. So your face is partially illuminated, and it's reflecting in your glasses, and then couple that with the fact that you're backlit, it looks really eerie. Of course, you look kind of eerie to begin with, so, you know. You asked if we're getting enough sleep, and the answer is certainly in the last couple of days, yes. Now remember those first 4 days, it was essentially just a lightning move across the desert. Traveling distances and traveling at speeds really unheard of in modern warfare. They covered hundreds and hundreds of miles, and obviously I could be more precise about the number, but they don't want us to say precisely where we are in south central Iraq. But they covered a great deal of distance in a very short amount of time, and neither they nor we were getting much sleep.
typical day. I mean, we've been rolling with these tanks and Bradleys for most of the time since the ground war started Thursday night, local time, our time. You know, we sleep sort of crunched up inside this M88, this tank recovery vehicle, and you grab an MRE, a meal ready to eat, which is the same thing that these soldiers eat when you can, and you try to shave every day or two, and you know, I mean, it's not easy conditions, but as I've said, it's, you know, their lot in life is a lot harder than ours because in addition to everything else, they're trying to fight. Look, we didn't want to do this coverage where the only thing that the American people saw back home was the precision photography of a bomb hitting a target or a general conducting a briefing. We wanted to show these soldiers, these enlisted men, these young kids, a lot of them in their late teens and early 20s, what it's like on the front lines for them. And the only way to do that, we thought, was to come here and be here.
This could not be any more uncomfortable.
I've got a sniper, Private Jason Mounts, sitting right next to me as well. I don't know how easy it is for Craig, where he's standing right now, to turn around. But we've also got 3 other military soldiers with us as well, with Sergeant Joe Todd mounting this 50 caliber machine gun. And Bob Gallagher in the front, the senior most enlisted man, and then the driver, Trinity McLean, to his left. So, I mean, given the 4 of them on this M88, which is this tank recovery vehicle, we feel relatively safe.
There's so much somber news by definition when you're covering a war. So when out of the blue the opportunity comes along to let a soldier say hello to his wife, especially because Specialist Santos Cabrera, who's the tank driver of that M1A1 Abrams tank that you see behind me right there, he just found out a couple hours ago that his wife Erica had a baby about 2 weeks or so ago. So I'm going to give this headset to him and let him talk to his wife here.
Hello?
I call my wife and kids not every day, but almost every day, because we have our satellite phones, which allow us to do that, and I want them to know that I'm safe and sound. I haven't really taken the chance to say hi, so hello Melanie, hello Christine, hello Nicole, hello Ava, and I want to say happy birthday to my twins, Christine and Nicole, who were 9 on Sunday. You know that you'd rather in some ways be sitting back at home with your wife and kids, but that's not the mission that we've got right now, and so we accept that risk in order to bring this story back home to the American people, which I, for one, and I know everybody at NBC News believes, is a risk worth taking, because this is something that it's worthwhile for the people back home to see.
David Bloom was a reporter's reporter, full of life and energy, praised by all, even people who never came in direct contact with him. David brought this war into our homes like no other correspondent in history. Here are some of the glowing reviews written about David's time spent embedded with the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division. The Detroit Free Press says, quote, Bloom has been a dashing figure riding along the 3rd Infantry on a high-tech transmission set nicknamed the Bloommobile. Bloom has popped into one of the ultimate hard news hot seats. The Orlando Sentinel praises David by saying, quote, MSNBC has had the best coverage on cable because of Bloom. David Bloom's reports jump through the screen in ways some of the others don't. TV Guide critic Matt Rouse says of Bloom, people have likened him to David of Arabia. And the Washington Post writes, if the NBC honchos sound as if they're gushing over Bloom, that's because they're thrilled with his boyish enthusiasm and the mobile satellite platform that transmits crisp pictures at up to 50 miles per hour. Bloom is seen zipping through the desert so often that he's become Iraq's unofficial travel guide. Bloom proved one of the most able and informative TV journalists reporting from the field. And the Los Angeles Times writes of David Bloom looking almost extraterrestrial in the greenish light of a night scope while airing round-the-clock live reports from atop a tank in a convoy rumbling through the Iraqi desert. The image, an unstoppable force. David was full of life and always striving to do the best he could. He was an inspiration to all who worked with him. Here are some of his colleagues, both from inside and outside the NBC family, in their own words.
David Bloom was the single finest journalist I've ever known. He was breathtaking. He was a great friend, a great adventurer, a tireless reporter, up day and night, sleeping in the dirt, pushing his way through, never a complaint, great good humor, and just a spectacular on-air presence. I think really the most electric, exciting, and interesting that I knew in my entire career at NBC.
It's utterly devastating, and I just want to say that I really believe that I rode into this war on his shoulders. He has been planning for this for months. He was a workhorse like you could just never imagine. I've always considered myself a hard worker, but whenever I was around David, I felt that I just didn't understand the meaning of hard work and dedication to the craft of journalism. He put together an outline on the history of Iraq, the weapons comparisons between Iraq and the United States, all the different facets of the Saddam personality, his cult, his town, I mean, you name it about Iraq or the American military. David had put together an encyclopedic outline of it. And at the end of doing all that work, the day I was leaving, he said, "Do you want a copy of it?"
Now we want to mention a fellow journalist who lost his life today in the Iraqi desert. Dedicated, tenacious, and good-humored are some of the ways NBC correspondent David Bloom is being remembered. Bloom died suddenly of an apparent blood clot, according to the network. He leaves behind a wife and 3 young daughters. He would have turned 40 next month. We offer our condolences to David's family.
Last week, we learned of the death of Michael Kelly, the Washington Post columnist, who died when his vehicle overturned in a canal. He leaves a wife and 2 sons. Today, we learned of the death of NBC News correspondent David Bloom, as gentle a man and as brave a reporter as I ever knew, who died from a blood clot in the lungs after pushing himself to the limit and past it as he traveled with American troops as they made their way to Baghdad. He leaves a wife and 3 daughters. I knew both of them, and it was not the glamour of the job that drew them to the battlefield, but a passion to be where the story was, which is what reporters are supposed to do. Because they and the rest of the reporters covering the war have been there, the rest of us are getting a new appreciation of the job the American military has been doing, and because of those reporters, the propaganda from Saddam Hussein's people is put to the lie daily. But let these reporters' deaths remind us that this is not a television show, an option for those who don't like basketball. This is a war. People die, and the loss and human suffering is borne most of all by the families of both those who fight the wars and the reporters who tell their stories.
David not only left his mark on his colleagues and the viewers that he served, but also on the men and women who he reported on. A White House spokesperson relayed to reporters this message from the president, quote, "Just as he mourns for all of those in the military and others who have lost their lives in Operation Iraqi Freedom, the president mourns the loss of David Bloom. The president extends his sympathies to the Bloom family." And former President Clinton released this statement. David Bloom was a smart, energetic professional whose enthusiasm for the job was evident in every question he asked and every story he covered. He was a really fine man, and his integrity and good humor will be missed not only by those who knew him, but by millions of people who were enlightened by his hard work. Hillary and I offer our thoughts and prayers to David's family and friends at this difficult time. As he rumbled northward across the Iraqi desert atop that modified M88 tank recovery vehicle, David, in his characteristic generosity, never hesitated to remind us that he wasn't alone out there. Traveling with David was cameraman Craig White, who gave us an idea of what life in the Bloommobile and life with David was all about.
If I can ask my cameraman Craig White just to sort of pan around here, you can see some of the vehicles just moving along this road.
It's an experience that I think everyone should see. We endeavor to show war with all of its warts. That's the reason we're here. If we're going to send people to fight, I think that people ought to really see what it's like for the people who are out here. Unfortunately, as an embed with the military, we're only allowed 2 official people, which means that I end up trying to do sound, trying to do video phone, trying to use a stabilized camera, trying to do transmission, doing none of it particularly well, but trying to do as best we can. David is also very busy from an editorial standpoint, trying to keep up on what the latest developments have been as we roll along.
My photographer, Craig White, pans along. You can see some of these vehicles are moving quite slowly.
The vehicle that we're in is very, very crowded. It's designed really for 2 to 3 people. Sometimes we have as many as 6. It's basically like taking your bathroom and cutting it off at the 4-foot level and living within that and then on top of it. By the way, I think that pictures of David kind of remind me of the old stagecoach pictures. Usually a man riding along, shotgun behind or next to him, and the background moving along, it reminds me of the old Wild West.
We got rockets coming in on us. We're under attack right now. So they asked my photographer Craig White to white balance, which for those of you at home wondering what that means, it basically means get the colors true so that the colors that you actually see at home are the colors that we're seeing here. It is orange, it is rust, it is just this brown muck that we're standing in the middle of.
The dust is everywhere. It's in every nook, in every cranny of every piece of equipment that we have. Almost all pieces of equipment we have suffered or have been disabled from time to time, some completely disabled. We're sure hoping to get this over with soon, get home to our families, and I'm sure all the soldiers feel the same way.
So many of you have called us and written emails with your personal messages for David's family and for us, his colleagues who are missing him right now. We wanted to share some of them with you. These are a pair of voicemails I got today.
Hey, I wanted to express my condolences on the loss of your good friend David Bloom. Just yesterday I was commenting to my wife that he's just absolutely amazing out there. I was saying to her, I don't know how that guy does it. And other reporters were saying that watching him was like watching somebody on a wagon train coming across the Great Plains. And it was just tragic.
I enjoy your program very much. I'm devastated by the news of David Bloom. I hope you won't be too journalistically reticent and will portray him in some sort of special, maybe some outtakes or something. He really brought home the decency of America to me. As one who was opposed to the war, he really brought the ethics of the troops and his own sense of frontiersman and old American ethics home across the screen to me, and meant a great deal, and I really spoke for the young Americans, I think, that are over there.
Here are some of the emails you have sent in to us. An anonymous viewer wrote, "My sincerest condolences for the loss of the great David Bloom. I woke up this morning to hear about it, and it made me sad the entire day. I think his Bloommobile ride across the border into Iraq was at that time the most dramatic moment in years of TV." Eric Harmon of Seattle, Washington had this to say, "David Bloom's reporting from Iraq was spectacular. The reporting from David Bloom and Bob Arnott have given me much pride in our forces and much hope for the future. I'm able to see exactly how professionals and compassionate our troops are. My heartfelt condolences go out to Mr. Bloom's family, friends, and colleagues." And we thank you for your notes. We'll be right back with Tom Brokaw's thoughts of his friend and colleague, plus a special tribute to David Bloom's wife and 3 daughters when we return.
This is crap. In this goal, and there will be thousands of people in the streets of Washington this coming weekend and on April 26th. So the anti-war movement has not gone anywhere. We will continue to raise the issues that we are raising.
Oh, but Dominic, let's come back to the first question I asked, because
just yesterday, Sunday that is, the first military transport plane arrived in Baghdad airport. It was a C-130 transport plane. Now, it's just before 5 a.m. in Baghdad right now, and the ground fighting continues through the evening and into the morning. The city is virtually without electricity or any telephone service, and the latest reports are of machine gun, mortar, and artillery fire. Also surface-to-surface missiles, but no one can exactly tell who those missiles are coming from. And U.S. commanders say basically the Iraqis have no organized fighting machine left. Nevertheless, U.S. forces say that they still have a very tough fight ahead of them, especially since Iraqis say that they intend to use what they call non-conventional weapons, although no one knows exactly what they mean by that. But we know that they have threatened to use homicide bombing attacks. They've done it recently, and they intend to do it in the future. That's the latest here from Amman Jordan. Linda, back to you in New York.
Heather Nauert, thanks very much. Want to go for analysis to Birmingham, Alabama. Retired U.S. Army Major John Glassford. Major, thanks for being here.
Good evening, Linda. Thank you.
A couple of questions about what we're seeing right now. You just heard Heather reporting on this perimeter that we've set up around the city. You think that is a brilliant strategy because it essentially keeps what's left of Iraq's military off guard.
Yeah, it keeps them bottled up, and actually, we can now wage a guerrilla war, if you will, against the Saddam forces. The Iraqi population in Baghdad is a hostile population to the Iraqi military. We could send special operations teams, Rangers, SEALs, special forces in to cooperate and work with the local population for them to point out the special security forces of Saddam Hussein's, and we'll start taking them out one by one.
Now, in terms of this perimeter, you think right now that we have special ops in certain parts of the city on certain major exit routes, basically trying to screen this stream of people trying to flee to figure out who's Ba'ath Party, who is Special Republican Guard, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, we've had some reports that some of the senior leaders of the military and of the Ba'ath Party are trying to exfiltrate, to get out of the city with the other refugees. It's going to be hard for them to do that because these are people who are used to having power, and they have certain body language, certain nonverbal communications that for the trained eye will be able to pick them out and seize them.
When you say the trained eye will pick them out, I mean, how do you tell? If they're wearing a keffiyeh, you know, like the guy right there in the video, how do you know?
Again, if they sit unnaturally, if they stare straight ahead, if they're unwilling to look at someone in the face, there's just an air about them that doesn't sit right, that the person, the Special Forces soldier, just recognizes and has a gut feeling that this person is not who he says he is.
We understand that there is a continuation of the dropping of the leaflets. In terms of what we've already, you know, we're accomplishing militarily in Baghdad, what is the dropping of the leaflets accomplish?
Again, the leaflets is going to reinforce the perception of them on the Iraqi population, the Baghdad citizens, that we're there to stay, we're there to help them. And also such issues as turn in those Special Republican Guards, turn in Ba'ath Party leaders, help us get rid of this hated and despised regime.
But we can't, I mean, can we really expect them to fully help us until they see some sort of proof that Saddam Hussein himself is dead? I mean, when his picture is on a sign, you know, on basically every street corner in that city, will they really come out en masse until they see he's dead?
One of the mistakes we made in this campaign is we seriously underestimated the depth of fear and paranoia instilled within the Iraqi population by Saddam Hussein. We're just now seeing the Iraqi population in the south come out with open arms because they are convinced, they are certain we're there to stay. It's going to take a little bit of effort in the Baghdad region for us to do that, but I have no doubt it will be done.
So if you could give, without endangering operational security, if you could give an overview of what you think is going to happen in Baghdad, say this week, what would you say?
We're going to continue these armed reconnaissance forces, all parts of the city, from the west, from the south, with the Marines, from the north. We're going to go in and probe. We're also going to have the Special Operations team identifying those strong points where they may meet resistance. And then we'll put steel on target. We'll target those people in those forces to take them out. We'll work with the local population, again, to have them help turn in the Special Security Forces.
Question about one of the reports that's coming out of Central Command. They're saying that we have basically control of the skies over Iraq. Does that mean that all of the anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missile sites, say around Baghdad, have been neutralized, or enough of them have been neutralized that our aircraft are not in trouble? I'd say enough of them have been neutralized that they're not going to cause trouble. There's going to be a few, I would imagine. They're probably withholding a few shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles just for that one chance. But again, our Special Forces teams operating within Baghdad, their job is to find those weapons and to take them out. Got it. Major John Glassford, U.S. Army retired, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. My pleasure. All right. This next story truly expresses the heart and courage and determination behind America's finest. Last month, 2 U.S. soldiers who were stranded in the Iraqi desert for a week survived despite having given much of their food to hungry Iraqi civilians who passed by them. 20-year-old specialist Jeffrey Klein and 22-year-old Matthew Copy, both of them mechanics, were on their way to tow an officer's Humvee that had broken down when their own truck's clutch failed. So they were told to wait for rescue. They did. And no one ever showed up. Well, at least not for a while. These two soldiers dug trenches to defend their position. They took turns to watch, and now they're finally out and safe. Joining us to give us further details of a pretty incredible story, from Cincinnati, Ohio, Billy and Adam Klein. They're the parents of Jeffrey Klein. And from Savannah, Georgia, is his expecting wife, Deanna Klein. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deanna, I'm going to ask you first, since you were the first one to get the phone call. From what I understand, you didn't even know Jeff was missing until you got a phone call from him saying, I'm okay and I'm safe, which is probably the thing that scares us spouse most, is just to hear that, because then you know something bad happened before that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, first of all, when you first get the phone call, it's nothing but tears of joy just to hear their voice and to know they're okay. But on the other hand, for him to say, I've been through this and this, it was just heartbreaking.
And Billy, from I guess the second phone call, Deanna paps through to you, and you basically almost tipped right over the coffee table trying to get to the phone because you were so excited.
Well, that was the phone call we found out after he was okay. She had three-way to call through to us, and I got to speak to Jeff directly for about a minute and a half, I guess.
Just enough.
And yes.
Yeah, just enough to say I love you and sort of mumble all sorts of things you can't remember 5 minutes later.
Exactly.
Yeah, Deanna, from what Jeff told you, I mean, he was basically lying in this trench, and Iraqi civilians were coming past him, but he was also looking at these white vehicles, which he knew were sometimes trademark vehicles of the irregular forces of Iraq who were so frightening, the Fedayeen. That must have been terrifying.
Oh, definitely, especially if you know what it is. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes as a soldier. I respect my husband a whole lot more for what he's done.
Did he ever lose faith that somebody was going to come back and pick him up? I mean, 7 days passed when he and Matthew were sitting there in their trench and they were giving away their food, and each day passes and no one comes.
No, I don't think my husband ever for once had a shadow of a doubt of the military, the people that he's trained with and the people that he serves with. I don't think there was ever a doubt in his mind.
Billy, if Jeff was lying there in the desert and he didn't know when he was going to get picked up, most people might have been, well, inclined to hang on to their rations, not to share them with people. And here Jeff was giving them away to Iraqis who approached him, and he didn't even know if they were friendly or if they were going to give them up to the military.
That doesn't surprise me about Jeff. Jeff's a very giving, loving, caring person, and if he thought someone is hungry or as hungry as he was, he would share.
Adam?
That's just Jeff.
I could see you nodding.
Yeah, I agree with her 100%. He's a totally giving child or young man now, and he's been that way since he grew up. He's always shared his toys, and now he's sharing his food.
It's extraordinary. Deanna, I heard that Jeff said basically that after he was rescued, all he wanted to do was get back to his unit. Has he already gone back?
No, he hasn't gone back as of yet. It's still a possibility, but that doesn't surprise me about Jeff, especially if you train with people for as long as you do and you're a key element in that team. I wouldn't want to be separated from my unit either.
Adam, in terms of just the danger that he's facing, is Jeff able to communicate to you at all what he's doing?
He called us Saturday morning. It was his birthday Saturday morning, and he told us that he was trying to get the rest of his gear put together, the gear he lost in the field, and he was waiting on orders to find out where he was going to go next.
Billy, weren't you tempted to just say, son, step away from the table? You made it. You basically cashed in some good luck already. Don't push it.
I do, but I've always taught my son to stand up for what you believe in, and if freedom is what he believes in and he wants to support that, then I support him.
Deanna, a question to you, because from what I understand, your specialty is in weapons of mass destruction. You also are in the military, and because you are expecting a baby, your orders to deploy to the Middle East were canceled. Do you, I know you are excited about the baby, but is there a part of you that feels like, gosh, I wish I could be over there serving along with my husband?
Oh, a big part of me. I know I have a big responsibility now, and I'm thankful for the responsibility that is being put upon me. But as a soldier, there's a big part of me that wishes I was right next to my team, right next to my crew, right next to my husband. I really do.
Deanna, I don't know if Jeff is going to be able to hear it, but we want to give you the chance to say something just in case. Any message you want to send to him?
I want him to know how much I love him, how much I'm holding things down back here for him, and how much his family loves him. And he has a whole lot to come home to, so stay strong and keep doing what he's doing.
Private First Class Deanna Klein, thank you. Billy and Adam Klein, thank you as well.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. That's going to do it for this hour. Keep it here for a special edition of Hannity and Combs, followed by At Large with Geraldo Rivera. He's live in Kuwait City. I'm Linda Vester. Thanks for being here. I'll be back with you at 11 p.m. Eastern Time.